Howdy. All right, so let's have some fun here. I do have a thunderstorm that's going on right now, so hopefully that doesn't interrupt what we're going to talk about. So excited to see you. Again, I'm Brandi from Kinney Health and Wellness, and we're going live. I want to dive a little deeper into protein. I do have a lot of questions about it, and often people are what I would call really low on protein intake when I start to see them. And so one of the first things that we really go over is what really is protein and why is it important? And we've already kind of talked a little bit about this, but I want to go a little deeper in on some things to give you some tips and tricks on how you can find protein and why quality matters. So bottom line, we're going to be shooting for anytime you're eating at least 30 grams of protein. Yeah, I said 30 grams of protein. Are you serious? I am. We are not getting enough protein, and protein is super important for all of the cells and the functions of enzymes and hormones and everything else in your body. If you're not providing it, your body's going to use it to make it, and that means it's going to potentially pull away from your current protein sources, such as, your muscle. Let's not have your body eat your muscle, right? We want to go ahead and we really want to make sure that you're getting good protein in. With that, quality really does matter when we're talking about food. So I want to envision, and I want you to really try to identify what this would be like. We're really trying to get quality nutrition in our body, correct? And so I really want the animals that I'm going to hopefully be eating and the plants that I'm going to be eating in order to get nutrition in my body, that they have good sources of food themselves. Make sense? So let's talk about animals for off the bat. What an animal eats is what's going to be used to make their cells in their body. We eat the animals. We want their cells to be as most nutritious as they can and void of toxins and other issues and other problems. So that is why we push, try to go organic. There are very strict rules with organic produce, or not produce, but organic production when it comes to animals and plants. And with that, you're held to, a higher standard and a different type of way in order to function. Imagine you got an animal that's grazing, they're going out. Hello, I see somebody's watching. I'm so excited. Yay! So back to what I was trying to say. If your animal's out grazing and they're eating grass and they have a life that they love, they're kind of meandering and they're having a blast. Life is great and wonderful for them. Well, guess what? They're going to have a less stress environment on their body, and they're actually going to be able to have a better nutrient content when you actually go to eat that animal. Super important when we're talking about the flesh of the animal. That's the meat we eat, guys, as well as the milk that's produced in dairy cows. So ideally, you really want to go for the organic. Super duper important. There's less toxin and all of that. So can't stress that enough. If we're getting animals and meat, for example, from a grocery store, you have labels on them. You really want to read them, okay? When we're looking at conventional farming, sometimes there's these things called big box farming. If you're not aware of that, what's really important to understand about that is those animals potentially do not necessarily maybe have the best quality of life. With that, that does come an issue, perhaps maybe with the production of their cells, right? We want to make sure we're trying to go organic. And again, I can dive a whole lot deeper in on this, and you can do a lot of research on your own, but I just really want to emphasize that. When we're talking about dairy, that's another thing that's important too. So the way that conventional dairy is done, there's processing that happens for pasteurization. So with that, we are losing some nutrient content, and a lot of people have a really hard time, and they really are not able to digest that type of a protein that happens with that. So a lot of dairy sensitivity actually is related to the fact of the processing that's happening with it. Something that's kind of important to kind of take into consideration. Again, I'm going right back to the idea of look at the standards that are held when we're dealing with organic. Super important to have that. So when you're going out and you're trying to get all of this protein in your body, easiest source is going to be the animal flesh. Another source can be dairy, a lot of cheeses, a lot of yogurts, but you really want to be mindful of what you're putting in. Very important to not have added sugars. So for example, one of the best things that you can eat as a great dairy product is a Greek yogurt. It's super amazing. It's already got digestive enzymes starting in the process. That's really kind of a neat thing. It's easier to digest on your gut. And you actually also have some really cool like probiotics already in there. It's amazing. However, you really want to make sure you're going organic on that one and you're reading the labels and you have less than 5 grams of sugar. If it's really sweet and tastes like a dessert, it's probably got sugar in it and you probably don't want to be eating that. So Just some tips on that component. When we're looking at eggs, we want eggs coming from amazing animals as well. Those that are not kind of held in a lot of little tiny cages and are used the way that some of them are. So with that, you want the little buggers that are running around and eating bugs and maybe have a little bit of corn here and there, but their quality of food will then transfer over to the quality of their eggs and their flesh as well. Fish, when we're talking about fish, we want fresh caught fish, or what we would call pull caught or wild caught. What we're looking for with that is those little animals, or fish, excuse me, are swimming out in wherever body water that they're in. They're actually eating in that environment. We're going to get a better quality of meat on that. And if you actually look at the two side by side as compared to farmed, you're going to see a different color in some of the fish, and you're going to be like, interesting. Do I really want to eat that one? You can do some searching online. All you got to do is do a little Google search, and you can literally look to see what happens with farm-raised fish as opposed to wild-caught fish. I encourage you to take a peek at it. You'll want to eat the wild-caught. Put the best nutrition in your body when it comes to that source. That leads me down the road to protein powders. When we're talking about protein powders, you have some that are beef isolate, and you also have some that are whey-based. Whey is coming from the actual milk products. Again, whey is a component of milk and how it's processed, and that is used to then make the protein powder. When you're looking at protein powders, again, try to find the least minimally processed ones. We don't want all the extra added stuff in there that are going to be put in there, the added sugars and all the extra added flavors. But if you're looking for something, the least amount, as well as those that are tested independently. So there's a lot of really great brands that are out there that you can kind of do a little bit of research on too. I've kind of highlighted that I really like the Equip brand because I had an issue with myself with tolerating dairy. So I personally like that. That's a beef isolate. Another thing that often comes up too is people ask about collagen powder. Collagen powder is an amazing product, and in fact, a lot of it you can get unflavored. I like to add it to my coffee. You can add it to yogurt. You can add it to just about anything, and it's just adding you an extra bonus of actual collagen. Again, remember the sourcing and remember the idea of what the product is and where it's coming from. Can't say enough about how important that is as well. Have I kind of made a repetitive pattern here for you? Sourcing does matter when you're talking about nutrition. And if you're going to be spending money on these products, get the ones that are actually really good for you. They're going to give you the best bang for your buck when it comes to actually helping to heal the body, as opposed to needing to clean it up because you added extra yucky stuff to it. Okay. But that leads me to another thing, because you also can get protein from plants. Plants are a great source of it. Some people do have some issues with the plant proteins, if we're doing like a protein powder, for example. And the reason is maybe they have a really difficult digesting some of the components that are used to help emulsify or make that protein powder actually kind of, one, taste okay or blend in a nice way. So you're really going to want to watch label reading and understand what you're putting in. But it can be a really great alternative for people that want to try to avoid dairy. But when we're talking about any kind of a protein powder or even a collagen powder, I really want you to watch how you're feeling when you're digesting. That's super important, as well as when you're talking about meat or any sort of other like animal protein source, or if you're looking independently at plants when they're by themselves. So you can have some really amazing grains. Oats have protein in them. I mean, oatmeal is an amazing product, and it's something that's great. Going for organic. Let's really try to make sure that we have a gluten-free product. You can actually get some really great, like edamame, great protein source. You can have soy. There are certain types of soy that are really great quality that can actually provide extra protein. Lots of different nuts, legumes, beans. I'm not going to go over the exhaustive list of them. The thing to remember though is that your body cannot utilize that independently when you're talking about a plant. They are not complete proteins. The only complete protein is the one that's coming from animal flesh. So when we're talking about plants, you've got to combine them in a way in order to make you get a complete protein. Just kind of keep that in mind, and that's something that we talk about when I'm working with you. Another thing I want you to realize that no matter whatever else you're eating, when you're eating protein, if you have an aversion to it, or you might think to yourself, you know, every time I eat steak, every time I eat pork, every time I eat this certain protein powder, I don't feel good. My stomach might hurt. I might get a little bloating. I might get a little indigestion. You might get some stinky gas. All of that is a really big sign that you're having a really difficult time actually digesting it. super important that you can digest your food. If you're having a hard time digesting it and you maybe don't have the right enzymes that are going into the gut to provide enough acid to actually digest your food, that can be an issue. So that's something I really work closely with people. I really want to make sure that their body's able to actually digest their food. We can throw a lot of great, amazing food at somebody, but if they can't digest it, they can't absorb it, and the nutrition content is not going to get into the body to help them heal. So digestion is one of the major keys of one of the most important things that you need to be working with in order to make sure. So again, it's kind of interesting. Your body's really smart. If you don't really want to eat it, it could be because maybe you can't digest it. So again, I kind of talked in a couple little circles here. I think the biggest takeaway, quality seriously matters. There are lots of easy ways you can kind of start adding and supplementing different types of things into your diet. Just eat an egg. Have a little extra something when you're eating. Have a little bit of meat. Add in a little bit of a bean if you choose. What I'm saying is that just don't be afraid to stack it and have a little extra protein. The most important meal of the day is going to be that breakfast. Really nail it. Get a great protein content. Have a really healthy carbohydrate in the form of a vegetable would be the best, because you're going to get some great fiber with that. And then a nice healthy fat. You will have an amazing morning where you actually have energy. You actually have a sustained blood sugar that's not spiking and dipping. And you actually might not be super hungry. So with all of that, if you guys have any questions, again, remember you can find me. Obviously, I'm here on Facebook. You can also find me on Instagram. Check out the website. If you have any questions, you're curious about anything, I have discovery calls. I'd love to chat with you and see if what I do is a good fit with what maybe your needs are. Otherwise, I will see you next week, and I'm not quite sure what we're going to talk about yet. So we'll just see where it comes. I'll pop it out on Instagram and Facebook so you know. But otherwise, I think maybe the thunderstorm's done. Until then, I want you to have a great week. Bye-bye.